When you hear the MC say you're on the home stretch, you're always thinking, wow, I really am at sort of the end of this. And I've got to keep you all awake and interested. So I hope I can do that. I have a tendency to swear, so I apologize in advance. I'll try and keep it pretty straight. It's interesting, I was standing at the back of the room for an hour when it was the last presenter. And I'm amazed, and still am amazed, at how many of you are looking at your laptops, your phones, your tablets, and doing other shit that has nothing to do with the presentation, but you've all paid to be here. I guess you've all paid to be here. Now that's exactly the same problem that brand advertisers have. Let me tell you a little bit about my day. I'm not quite sure which one to press here. I was never very good at it. Ah, here we go. Hey look, this is what my day looks like. Constantly I am bombarded with messages from Facebook, from YouTube, from Twitter, from Instagram. There's a little bit of Snap, but I try and avoid Snap as much as possible. Email, calendar invites. Constantly my day is bombarded with messages. And because of a chemical in my brain and a chemical in everyone's brain called dopamine, which is a response or a reward and response mechanism or chemical in our brains. Every time I get one of these messages or an alert or a sound, I want to be able to check my phone. If I post something on Facebook, I want to know, hey, who's like that and who's responded. Now, that's not too bad, and I think we all do it. I'd be surprised if there anyone here who isn't doing it. And I can see some of you are still doing it now, so I think I still need to improve some of my content. Now, there's that going on. There are 2 billion people accessing Facebook on a monthly basis. That's a quarter of the world's population. If you take out the people in China who can't really access it, people under the age of 10 who don't really access Facebook anymore because it's not cool for them because their parents are on it. My kids are the same and they're only 5 years old. They think I'm old because I'm on Facebook. The reality is I am old and I am on Facebook, but hey. And you take out anyone maybe over the ages of 75, it's much more than 25% of the world's population are accessing social utilities today. Then advertisers have this problem. They are constantly serving you ads in an environment that you don't really care. Pretty similar to some of you what you're doing now. You're paying and you're engaging, but you're not really looking. So there are all these ads appearing across all the social utilities. Now, you can't avoid them, but I don't know if you notice them. Because, and this is from my Insta feed just last week, there are all these amazing photos. There are my friends having beautiful holidays in Malaysia, which kind of pisses me off when I'm sitting at my desk and it's raining in Singapore. There's obviously foodies, right? Who doesn't live in Asia and have foodies as friends constantly all the time? Even my wife now stops me from eating and wants to take a picture before I can dig into it. And when I'm hungry and just come back from a run, that's not ideal. There's even pictures of street signs, which are probably more interesting than 95% of the ads which are served across social utilities day in, day out. So that's a bit of a problem, right? Here you are, some of you might be brand advertisers, some of you might be advertising on Facebook, or how do I do this effectively? But there's all these other constant interruptions in consumers' days. There's amazing pictures from my friends, and it all seems a lot more interesting than any ads that I see, and it's true. But then check this out. Facebook, at the end of Q2 this year, it was reported that year on year, the costs of Facebook ads have increased by 24%. Guys, 24% year on year. And yet at the same time, none of us are really paying attention to those ads. That's a bit of a problem, right? You've got one of 3 choices. You can increase your ad spend by 24% and get the same results. You can keep your ad spend at the same level and expect a decrease in performance, or you can get creative. Today, I'm not here to sell you anything. I just want you to think differently. That's all I really want you to do, is think differently about, if you are brand marketers, how you are utilizing the social platforms. Now, I've got 2 5-year-old kids. Some people say I'm lucky. come and spend a week with them and you'll think differently. But we pay a lot of money in our house to avoid ads. My wife and I subscribe to Netflix. It's great. It's $15 for a shared account. We have Spotify, again, a shared account for about $15. My kids love YouTube, probably a little bit too much, and we pay to avoid YouTube. We've actually even gone to the next level in our house where we've installed Google Home, and through Chromecast and Google Home, they can now say, hey, Google, or it's okay, Google, please pay Ben and Holly on Netflix, and then miraculously, Ben and Holly appear on my TV. Now, we've programmed it so they can't do that anymore, but they'll probably find a way around it. People don't, it's not that they don't like ads, it's just that they don't want bad experiences. How many of you watch YouTube ads and you see the pre-roll come up and the little thing, you can skip this ad in 3 minutes, or like 3-5 seconds, and you're just waiting, you don't want it to get past, you don't want to watch the ad pass it, and then whoops, you press it a little bit too soon, and then you become a statistic for that brand advertiser, and then you go back and eventually you skip it, and you get the content you want. And now Facebook have taken it to an extreme where they put in-roll ads, so you're watching a friend's video or a media video for 15-20 seconds, and then you have to watch an ad from someone like Visa for 30 seconds. You can't skip that annoying ad, and you don't want to leave your computer because you're leaning in, and then it comes on, and then you've forgotten the video that you're watching. So if you're a brand marketeer, what do? Let's just recap what we've learned so far. Cost of ads have increased 24% year on year on the most widely viewed platform, social platform in the world. People don't want to pay for ads, and there's so much great, amazing content in our lives and so many other distractions in our lives that we don't really have much time to engage with ads. And at the end of the day, advertisers, and I come from an advertising background, at the end of the day, advertisers want a relationship with you. They don't want to show you a little tactic. They don't want to be that little just in there for a few seconds. They want to have a proper relationship with you. So that's your brand on the left and the audience on the right. And as a brand, you have to find the value exchange. It sounds easy, but it's not. The challenge is that consumers nowadays don't want to hear about the brand. They want to hear about themselves. The trouble is, brands are not set up to talk about anyone else other than themselves. Hey guys, don't look at me. I don't have the answer here, by the way. I'm just kind of communicating what we know and what we begin to understand. And we work with globally about 2,500 brands, and this is the sort of information that they're beginning to come to us saying, how do we understand consumers within the social environment? So there's knowledge deprivation. Let me give you an example. Maybe I'm Mercedes, and if on my social profiles all I talked about was Mercedes, 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 E200, AMG, Formula One, it would get a little bit boring. But if you could understand as Mercedes that there's a large unique engager overlap between Mercedes and maybe Hyatt Hotels or Ritz-Carlton, and then you can start to integrate the Mercedes messaging into a Ritz-Carlton or Grand Hyatt type messaging, then you are starting to put the consumer first. Brands need to shift the conversation away, and social is the perfect platform in which that conversation can be shifted. They just need to be able to understand how. This was a snapshot taken from our data for Australia across 4 different verticals. It doesn't really matter what the verticals were. On the y-axis we have interactions, and on the x-axis we have fans. Each one of those dots represents a social profile. So for example, if you're looking at e-commerce, it could be someone like Pop Cherry or Shellpole. If you're looking at auto, it could be in any one of the auto brands or anything like that. And alcohol, in Australia, they clearly like their alcohol brands. But what I'm trying to communicate here is that there is a massive clustering all in the bottom left. So all the brands, and you've got to remember, Australia, it's a population of 25 million. Their primary focus is on the local market, not the export market, so there is a limited audience in which they can target. So 25 million, And all these brands are essentially communicating exactly the same thing to all the same people. We did an analysis of fashion brands in Australia, and we looked at 6 months of the top 20 e-commerce brands, what they've been posting for the last 6 months. Guys, it was kind of quite funny, actually. It was pictures of dogs, cats, guinea pigs, and James Corden. And if you don't know who James Corden is, then you can go and research that. I am not joking. It was 97% of posts was rubbish like that. Had nothing to do with fashion, nothing to do with their brand. Dogs, cats, guinea pigs, and James Corden. Now, I don't know whether they're smart or they're desperate. And then people turn around and say, hey, well, companies have built $30, $40, $50 million empires from that type of content, but it wasn't that type of content that built those empires. And to me, social is not being leveraged. I say to me, I think to everyone, social is really not being leveraged in the best possible way. As marketeers, everyone is just really interested in engagement. And if we take that into the real-line world, engagement is really, hey, you're walking into a shop and you might pick up a piece of clothing and say, hey, I like that, put it back on the rail and walk out. That doesn't make you money. That doesn't really necessarily result in transactions. And that's exactly what's happening with so many brands now. They've run out of interesting content to post. So they think about putting pictures of dogs, cats, guinea pigs, and James Corden, and I say that so many times that you walk out of here like zombies going dogs, cats, guinea pigs, and James Corden. And it's amazing, and we talk to these brands and we say, hey, don't you want to talk more about your products or understand what else your audience are engaging with and what other brands and what are some of their lifestyle attributes and looking at some attribution analysis? They're really not interested because it requires a whole shift in their business model. Now, I don't know how long they can continue to post content like that. To me, I wouldn't have thought it was very sustainable, nor do I think it's very scalable, and there are only so many dogs, cats, guinea pigs, and James Corden pictures in the world. But this is the challenge that brands are having today. And if you're a bank and you start to post content like that, I think people would very, very quickly lose trust in your brand and probably not want to invest money with you. We all know content is the most valuable and important currency on social. What's happening in the region is also really interesting. So I look after everything pretty much from Korea, Japan, all the way down to Australia and New Zealand, and across to India, and every single market has a different strategy. Mature brands in Australia now are just posting content once to twice a week. I get that. It's scalable, and they think that's the optimum posting number for them. In Indonesia, where I was last week, and we've got a big customer base in Indonesia, they're posting something like 15 to 20 to 25 times a week. There's a massive difference in frequency, and someone came to us the other day and said, how many times should we post? And we said, well, that's entirely up to you. You've got to look at the data and define what your audience are engaging with and the frequency of the engagement. It's not about the number, it's about quality. It's a real challenge for so many brands around the world. And the challenge is, it's to now, everything or the majority of things which brands are doing within the social ecosystem, it's really been about acquisition. We've got to acquire new fans. Again, coming back to Australia, because I was still amazed. I always thought that Australia was a more mature market. And I believe a lot of it is relevant to their management and their senior management defining the KPIs that they need to track. They have started to buy fans again. Now, I worked for a company and we used to do that in 2009 and it was great. They were really cheap. It was about $1 a fan. It made everyone look good because that's all anyone ever cared about. It's not really true anymore. I feel that we've kind of moved on 8, 9 years and they have now resorted back to buying fans. And I spoke to someone on the side and I said, hey, why are you doing that? And they actually said, because our metrics have remained stale. They've been in a status quo and we need to find we need to report new metrics to our management so they become or retain their interest in the social platform. Rather than actually doing better content or writing more engaging content or understand what their consumers want, they have gone out to buy more fans. And then they hope that these new fans will result in more engagements, more shares, more likes, all those vanity metrics which actually don't matter, so then they can keep their jobs. So there really has to be now a balance between acquisition and retention. Now I'm a little bit old, I do wear glasses normally, but I took them off up here, else I'd be blinded by the light. I used to work in the ad industry, and this is going back 98, 99, 2000. And I used to work for a WPP agency, and it was direct marketing. It was called Wonderman. Then we changed our name to Empiric, and then we went back to Wonderman. But everything that we used to preach to our customers was AIDA. AIDA was awareness, interest, desire, and acquisition. And that was the path that, as an agency, we wanted our brands to go down for their consumers, to get their consumers to purchase. The social world now is a little bit different. I don't know how many of you... Well, actually, let me take a step back. When I log now onto my social feeds, all I see are pictures of my wife having a nice time, buying new things, which can get a little bit frustrating sometimes, especially when I get the credit card bill at the end of it. And we are still married, but we're hanging in there. I see pictures of my friends having beautiful holidays. Those are the friends without kids, so they can just go off at the weekend to Bali or to Phuket. And I'm thinking, wow, sometimes I wish I didn't have kids, but I do love them. I see people going out to really nice restaurants, having a really nice time and stuff like that. The foodies, a little bit like my wife does, but not with me all the time now, more with her friends. I see people having staycations, or, I get pissed off. There I am in my office, or speaking here at Digimarcom, and there's all these people on my social profiles having a really, really nice time. I'm thinking, wow, where do they get the time? Where do they get the money? And why did I have kids? But now I'm influenced not by ads. I'm not influenced by TV. I honestly don't know, with the exception of the Grand Prix this weekend, when I last looked at a TV. I don't actually know when I last looked at a newspaper. All my news now, in fact, very rarely, I just saw someone looking at the BBC News website or the app. I don't even go there anymore, and I am English, and it used to be my staple diet, because everything is now coming in through my Facebook feeds, right? CNN, Business Insider, Reuters, Bloomberg. It makes me sound intelligent, actually. I need to practice that, but it's all now coming into my Facebook profiles. And so I don't need to go anywhere else. In fact, there was a question the other day, do we still need websites? Do brands still need websites? Maybe not much longer, because all the eyes and all the attention are focusing on the feeds. And it's the same when we purchase this validation loop. There was a recent report out I saw by Marketo, and it surveyed people in the US and Europe. They never include Asia. And it was, how do you make decisions? Influencers, you get macro influencers, micro influencers. You get reviews on TripAdvisor, on Amazon, and lots of other sources, and CNET and things like that, from friends, and you see it in news feeds. You don't actually respond to ads anymore. But yet, the cost of Facebook ads is still going up 24%, reportedly year on year. So the focus now for brands has to be migrating away from the whole acquisition, and then looking at retention and loyalty, and really understand what their consumers are doing and how their consumers are engaging with content. I want to show you a little bit of a case study, and this is with a financial institution that we work for here in Singapore, and they're a regional bank. Now, I don't know how many of you work at banks, have engaged with banks, or even engage with your bank as a consumer of a bank. But it's really easy. If you're a marketing manager or a product manager at a bank, let's say you have one social news feed, right? You've got credit cards, you've got loans, you've got insurance, you've got mortgages, you've got car loans, you've got 30, 40, 50 different products. You've got one Facebook page, maybe by country. So all of a sudden, their Facebook page is populated by 50 different products every day, because don't forget, for the car guy, cars are more important than home loans. For the home loan guys, home loans are more important than the car guy. And everyone is fighting to get their content onto that page. But none of us, let's be honest, none of us really give a shit, because we're not interested in those products, right? And so the bank came to us and they said, hey, Social Bakers, we want to understand what to communicate to our customers socially, because we know we have limited real estate space. And they know that the more they post, the diminishing returns that they get. So we started to help them to identify, so this was one bank, and we helped them, or they told us, okay, we want to monitor these 9 competitors, right? And for those 9 competitors, from just content on our social, on our Facebook page, we want to know what content that we post that attracts engagers from our other 9 competitors. So we know that this piece of content or these pieces of content over the analyzed time period, and the bank chose to do the study every 3 months. Sometimes we do it for every 1 month. But we want to know which content out of the content that we post, which one had the biggest impact in attracting fans from over there, from our competitors' bank, from our competitors to our bank. There's a key word there to note, attracted. Now, I'll build out this slide and then I'll talk about the difference. At the same time, they also wanted to know what of their competitors' content attracted our clients' engagers away from them and to the competitor's page. So was there any content that was more compelling? Were there certain promotions? Were there certain activities? And now we have switched. Now the difference between attracted and switched is attracted are people that were flirting between the banks. So they didn't necessarily stay with our client the whole time. They still engaged, and engage is a like, a comment, or a share. They still engaged with the other banks, whereas switched means that they came or stayed with a bank and didn't really do anything else. And again, they wanted to look at which content that they posted switched users from bank ABC to their bank. So they can start to build up a content strategy. They can start to build up an engagement strategy on social media. So they can really understand what content is driving the biggest impact. And it's probably not content about a credit card loan or super low interest rates, right? That's what the product managers want you to read, and that's what they want you to engage with. But that's actually not what was working. It's much more around lifestyle. It's much more around integration. In fact, it has nothing to do with the bank, because as consumers, we don't really care about banks unless they lose our money. And then the other component was which content attracted these people and became loyal users, and for a 3-month period never interacted with any other bank. Hey, a quick question. How many of you follow your bank on Facebook? Come on, there's got to be someone, right? I haven't got my glasses on, but... Oh, one? Hey, man. Wow. Cool. I've got some good books you could read. It's cool. But that's just it, right? So if that's the challenge that if banks have 1 out of however many people in this room, 1 out of 100, that's a pretty big challenge. But if they started to do more engaging content that was much more lifestyle orientated, which they've started to do, and not about them, they can get far better returns. Now this chart's a little bit complicated, and I don't really want to go into it, into each different bar, but our client is A, and then the B to J are the competitor clients. And what they understand is around loyalty. So we are trying to shift this whole conversation from acquisition to loyalty. Now, a lot of our clients come to us and they say, Charles, our boss has just asked me what's the ROI on social. I'm like, hey, why are you asking me, dude? That's your job. But then I started thinking, hey, what is the ROI on social? And I'm sure, that there's some nice attribution platforms that can tell you, okay, this, and looking at your overall funnel and your attribution funnel, what interaction equated to what type of transaction. But social, unlike affiliate marketing, unlike retargeting or remarketing or search, it's very hard to equate a click or an interaction or a social transaction to an actual purchase. And then I started thinking, so why is that boss always asking these people, what's my ROI on social media? And then I figured it out. It's because it makes them look smart, right? You've got someone here who theoretically doesn't know much about social. He's asking an expert about their own domain. And if they can't answer that, he feels really good about himself or herself. And so now we say to our customers, well, look, you've got to shift the needle. Don't just focus on trying to attribute that piece of content to a particular transaction. You have to migrate or shift the conversation over to loyalty. And so what this chart shows, we are starting to look at, for this particular banking brand, how many of people that are engaging with their content, what's the frequency of that content, what content created those repeat engagements. And what was really interesting is, and then we look at those engagements and say, in this period it was 3 months. Okay, in 3 months, how many engagers engaged once, twice, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times? Now, in 3 months, can anyone guess what percentage of people engaged more than 10 times? If any of you get it right, to give you a clue, you've got to go less than 1. Less than 1%. It wasn't quite 0. It's about 0.97 or some annoying number like that. They just couldn't quite get to the 1. But it's something like 0.97% of people in a 3-month period only engaged with content more than 10 times on that particular bank's website. And then we started to do analysis across other clients because that really got us interested and we really wanted to kind of understand that more. And it was true. That was kind of a common number. So bringing this all back, here you are, you're brand advertisers or you're looking after social platforms, you want to talk to customers, but customers aren't engaging with you because they're bored about hearing about you. Soon you'll be bored about hearing from me and you'll start throwing things at me and saying, get off, but it's true, right? And so brands have to really start figuring out and diversifying the conversation and becoming less invested in themselves and talking about your likes and your dislikes and everything like that. So today, these are still commonly the metrics that brands look at. What are my likes? What are my engagers? We really need to shift that and looking at much more advanced metrics. And being able to pull in third-party data from various CRM solutions, various business integration solutions, just from applications like SimilarWeb, so we can start to understand our consumers better. We still go to our customers and we say, how are you using social? And I'm amazed at how many customers are still accessing our data from their desktops or from their tablets. It's not in front of a CMO, it's not in front of a CEO. It's contained. And there's so much information happening within the social ecosystem. This information needs to be at the forefront or at the center of every single organization. Because let's face it, what we do offline is very different from what we do online. There's lots of studies to prove that. One of the most accessed things online is porn and drugs and stuff like that. But those aren't things that we go and talk about at these conferences. And so we get a true understanding of people online more than we do offline. So this is the sort of information that we have to bring back into the organizations, and everyone has to make accessible and actionable to deliver insights. Now, you're probably standing, okay, this guy's been talking for half an hour, 30 minutes. What does he know? Hey, that's true. I probably know a fraction of what you all know. But since we've been in business, we're coming up for our 10-year anniversary, we have been monitoring 10 million business profiles on Facebook. We've been accessing pretty much the whole of Twitter. We monitor everything that's happening on Instagram and YouTube and Pinterest. We're monitoring 10 million business profiles. We access or monitor, track, and analyze 10 billion pieces of content on a daily basis. 10 billion pieces of content within the social ecosystem, and we're adding about 40,000 to that every single month. And we have a really good understanding of how customers and brands are engaging with one another. And we're still trying to make sense of it. Brands are still trying to make sense of it. I don't have the answers. I wish I did. I wouldn't be here. I'd probably be in Hawaii dipping my feet into the Grand Hyatt pool or something like that. But the important thing that I really want everyone to be able to take out of this session is shift the needle. If you're working in social, or you have a responsibility within the within the social ecosystem, stop trying to put a dollar value to everything that you're doing. Shift the conversation. Don't look at acquisition. Start to look at conversion. Start to look at retention, and start to look at loyalty. And that way, we will become much better at what we do, and then brands will stop talking about themselves. If you stop talking about yourselves, you'll get much better interactions, and you'll start to understand a lot more about your customers. And in sales, they always say you should talk less, listen more. That's exactly what brands need to do within social. They need to talk a lot less and listen a lot more. So these are some of the key things that I want you to take away, and some of the areas in which you need to think about. There is no cookie cutter approach. Nothing is exactly right. You have to do trial and you have to do error, but you need regular insights. You need those insights on a daily basis, and you need to live and breathe everything that's here. Okay? That's me. Thank you.